What's going on, guys? Today we're going to get nerdy and talk about compressing your feeding window and what impact that might have on your body's global level of inflammation. I think it's a very important study to review. It's the first study of its kind to look at 24-hour levels of various cytokines and compare them for a baseline, compare them before Ramadan fasting, where they're still doing a time-restricted feeding protocol, and then during Ramadan. So this is a really important study. I'm Mike Mutzel, and you're tuning into High Intensity Health. Super excited, super grateful that you're here. If at any point you enjoy this content, you know what to do. You gotta subscribe so you get a little notification when we launch new videos like this. If you enjoy the content, just hit that like button. That gives us feedback. That helps YouTube tell other people that have similar health conditions and concerns and interests like you that this video is helpful. So the title of the study is called The Effects of Diurnal Intermittent Fasting on Pro-Inflammatory Cytokine Levels While Controlling for Sleep-Wake Pattern, Meal Composition, and Energy Expenditure. So I'm going to put the paper down and just give you a big picture overview of why you should care about this. As we've talked about on other videos, I'll link them here and below. As you age, you get more inflamed. We've defined that before. It's called inflammaging. The natural age-associated increase in global inflammation in your body. That increases your risk of insulin resistance, all sorts of inflammatory mediated diseases like autoimmunity, cancer, heart disease, neurodegenerative diseases, and much more. So one strategy that can help you age more gracefully and reduce your incidence of getting age-related diseases is to reduce inflammation. So that's why I think these studies are important to look at dietary strategies and feeding patterns that can naturally reduce levels of inflammation. And that's what this study found, is compared to the baseline, the 20 subjects that were tracked, calories were maintained for a baseline period. Then they did a compressed feeding pattern leading up to Ramadan. And then they did a compressed feeding pattern, obviously, during Ramadan. Now, during the month of Ramadan, there's different, lifestyle factors, a lot of prayer, a lot of different things going on that they wanted to control for and see if there was a difference between just compressing the feeding pattern and then doing that during all the Ramadan activities. And there was a difference. I'll let you look at the study, the levels of inflammatory cytokines right here. And to give you kind of the punchline, what these researchers showed is compared to the baseline eating ad lib, although energy was the same throughout the study, calorie intake that is, there was a statistically significant reduction in interleukin-1 beta and interleukin-6, which are two potent pro-inflammatory cytokines, again, that antagonize insulin signaling, that contribute to age-associated inflammatory diseases, cancer, autoimmunity, inflammation, heart disease, and things like that. So a natural way, without even changing the diet, right? They weren't going on a keto diet. They weren't doing carnivore. They weren't doing vegan. They didn't change their diet at all. They just compressed their feeding pattern, whether it's, during Ramadan or before, and what they had these individuals do. And as you know, if you're not familiar with Ramadan, and I'm not Islamic, I've just heard from friends, basically, you're not eating during daylight hours, okay? So you basically have two meals, one after the sun sets and another meal before the sun rises in the morning. So it's basically a 2 meal a day. But again, there's a big fast in between. And so I think it's important that we understand that, gosh, we can change our body's metabolic and inflammatory response by just compressing our feeding pattern. So I get excited about this. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. And I think these studies help give us a better insight so that we can custom tailor our compressed feeding pattern, whether it's eating 1 meal a day, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's time-restricted feeding, whatever it is. If our goal is, say, reducing inflammation because we have a family history of inflammatory diseases, or we know that we're prone to developing inflammation, autoimmunity, depression, things like that, you can customize your feeding pattern to really target that and potentially reduce inflammation. So just a small plug, we do have a lot of courses over on our website, courses.highintensityhealth.com, with macros, meal plans, feeding fasting patterns, and additional science videos, whether you want to just compress your feeding pattern and eat 1 or 2 meals a day, or if you want to go really more extreme and do the 1 meal a day. I'll link those below. And in those courses, we tell you a little bit more about how to customize this and so forth. But going back to this study, again, it was the first of its kind to look at circadian rhythm fluctuations in cytokines in a baseline group, in an intermittent fasting group, and during the month of Ramadan. And what they found is there was a statistically significant reduction in interleukin-1 beta and interleukin-6, which are two potent pro-inflammatory cytokines, again, that are involved in the innate immune system response and developing inflammation. And as we've talked about on other videos, which I can link below, there's this connection between our metabolism and our immune system. It's called meta-inflammation. And so we know that if we have inflammation, that's going to ricochet and affect our metabolism in a negative way. So I always want to remind you, as you're compressing your feeding pattern, as you're changing your diet, as you're changing your lifestyle, to not just focus on glucose and ketones. While those are important, we also want to focus on, okay, what are those foods and that feeding window? How could that be affecting my body's inflammatory response? Because inflammation affects metabolism. What I mean by that, high inflammation causes a reduction in insulin sensitivity. And so if you're trying to get all the health benefits of intermittent fasting or a ketogenic low-carb style diet, you want to keep this in mind in the back of your head. In fact, TNF-alpha, which is another pro-inflammatory cytokine that I'm not sure was measured in this study, but is linked to interleukin-6 expression, used to be called cachectin because it would cause muscle wasting, it would antagonize insulin signaling. We've talked about that in other videos. So anyhow, I think this is important stuff. I would love to know what your feedback is. If you enjoyed these videos, you can always hit that like button. If you think that you have a friend, a family member, someone that might benefit from this content, you can share this video with them. And as always, I would love to know what feeding pattern affects you in the most favorable manner. Type that comment in below, and appreciate you tuning all the way in, friends. So we'll catch you on a future episode. Bye now.